Our story starts at a diner which looks like a world war happened here. Dead bodies are lying everywhere, and no one is alive. But how did this chaos happen? To find out, we need to go back 24 hours. Welcome to Book of Recaps. The diner's owner, Edward Osborne, has a daughter named Nancy. She's just found out she's pregnant, but she doesn't know who the father is, and she doesn't seem to care. She tells her best friend, Tabitha. Tabitha asks if she's told her dad. Nancy replies, "No way. He'd kill me before I even thought about killing the baby." Nancy used to be a waitress at her dad's diner, but now she's been promoted to manager. This means more responsibility. However, ever since her mom died, Nancy has become less responsible and more careless. For example, she's supposed to be at the diner, but she's busy talking. Then, she drives her car at the very last minute. The last thing her mom left her was her car, but it breaks down on the way. So, Nancy starts walking. Luckily, she meets Bobby, a coworker from the diner. Bobby clearly likes her, showing it from time to time, but Nancy doesn't seem to notice. After Bobby gives her a ride on his bike, Nancy reaches the diner. Her dad tells her she'll have to work late tonight because he's going on a date. Nancy is very disappointed. She was planning to go to a party in town, but now she can't. She'll have to stay at the diner all night with Jake, the cook, who is a bit strange. Nancy asks if at least Bobby can stay, but Edward refuses. He doesn't want to leave Bobby and Nancy alone all night. He trusts Jake more. Nancy then tells Bobby about having to stay all night. Bobby is ready to stay and help for free, but Edward won't let him. Meanwhile, Nancy sees some leftover food on a table and gets sick. She rushes out the back door to throw up, and Jake sees her. He immediately understands she's pregnant. Edward then comes out, sees Nancy's condition, and also starts to suspect. Jake quickly covers for Nancy, saying she got sick from the smell of some bad meat nearby. Father and daughter leave, but we see Jake taking some medicine. He has a mental health problem that no one knows about. A little while later, Edward leaves. As soon as he's gone, four troublesome boys arrive on mopeds, carrying a dead opossum. Since Nancy is now in charge, she tries to chase them out. But then one of the boys comes back inside wearing a mask. He seems to want something to eat, but also bothers Nancy a lot. On top of that, Nancy feels the pressure of being a manager and having to take responsibility. So she threatens to call the police. When the four boys aren't scared by her threat, Nancy actually calls the police in front of them. Even though she didn't actually call anyone and was just bluffing, her plan worked, but in a slightly wrong way. Reluctantly, the four boys leave, but not before threatening Nancy. "We'll be back. Be ready." Feels like something big is about to happen. As soon as they leave, Nancy calls an urgent meeting with all the staff. All the workers are there. Bobby, Jake, Jake's innocent younger brother PT, both brothers work at the diner to make a living, and Coop, the bodybuilder. The guy with long hair isn't important to the story. Nancy called the meeting because when she was dealing with those four troublemakers, both Bobby tried to help her, and Jake was giving her advice. So, Nancy wants to make it clear, whenever I make a decision, I don't need anyone's advice. Even though I'm younger than all of you, I am the manager. Right after hearing this, Jake tells her again, "You're only a manager because the owner is your dad. Otherwise, you don't have any qualities that make you better than us." Nancy doesn't like this at all. She feels no worker should argue with a manager. Nancy needs to set an example and she has the power to act. So, without thinking, she fires Jake. She fires the only cook in the diner. First, Jake thinks she's joking. Jake and PT have a very long history with Nancy's dad. They are what you might call legacy workers at this diner. When Nancy's dad first opened this place, the very first worker was Jake's mother. She worked at the diner her whole life until she died. After her death, Nancy's dad gave jobs to both her children, Jake and PT. This is why Edward trusts Jake so much. He's known Jake since he was a child. Even today, this diner is so popular because of Jake. He has a special recipe he learned from his mother, which is why people come to this diner. Before that, they came for his mother. Jake basically built this diner, no matter who the owner is, and now the owner's daughter is telling him there's no place for him here. Jake should have exploded in anger, but he didn't. Instead, he calmly tried to explain to Nancy that she couldn't do this. But Nancy wasn't listening. Ever since she found out about her pregnancy, her mood has been bad. She directly told Jake, "You're not a worker here anymore, so what are you doing?" Jake had no answer. He said, "PT and I share a car. How can I leave without him?" Nancy replied, "Go wait outside, but get out of here." She acted like a child insulting an adult, then continuing because they think they're smart, speaking without thinking. Jake quietly left. Nancy felt she had shown her authority, but deep down, she didn't feel good about it. Still, she wanted to appear strong, which actually made her look worse. She was so worried. Bobby came over to ask Nancy how she was doing. But Nancy, still in a bad mood, insulted Bobby in front of everyone in the diner. After that, she went out to throw away something and saw Jake crying in his truck. Nancy didn't care. She just turned around and went back inside. When everyone left that evening, Nancy said goodbye to Bobby. But Bobby didn't answer her. He felt really bad. It was night, and the diner's neon sign was on. Nancy called her dad and told him she'd fired Jake. Her dad was angry, but he didn't show it much because his girlfriend was with him. He said he'd call Jake tomorrow and rehire him. It wasn't a big deal for him. But Nancy indirectly wanted to tell him she was alone. Her dad just said, "You'll handle it. No one will come at night anyway," meaning staying there overnight was just a formality. That's all they talked about. Nancy started dancing alone, but she didn't know that someone was watching her from outside. While dancing, she got sick and vomited again. She was cleaning up when someone knocked on the door. When Nancy looked outside, no one was there, but the mopeds of those naughty boys were outside. Nancy became alert because they had said they would come back. Nancy tried to warn them, but as soon as she did, they started banging on the diner walls. This scared Nancy. Before anything worse could happen, Nancy locked the door and called the police. But she got a message that all police were busy and someone would come as soon as they were free. Nancy wasn't satisfied, but before she could say anything, the phone line went dead. Those boys had cut the phone line. Through the large windows, they could clearly see Nancy and what she was doing. But Nancy couldn't see anything in the darkness outside. As soon as she went near the window, a boy wearing a mask appeared right in front of her. Then they started their mopeds and tried to get inside. Nancy ran to the kitchen and grabbed a knife. The boys surrounded the diner from all sides. Even the dead opossum was inside, meaning someone had already gotten in. Before Nancy could even think, the power went out, which made her panic. She couldn't think straight, so she went to a corner. She expected to be attacked, but it didn't happen because at just the right moment, the police arrived. Because of this, all those boys ran away. Sheriff Brooks arrived. As soon as he came, the power came back on. Nancy was telling him everything, but he wasn't really interested. He didn't think it was a big deal. So, he dismissed her concerns and went to Nancy's place. He checked all the areas, even the garage where the water was running. The sheriff turned off the water. Then, through his radio, he contacted his unit and told them he would stay there if they needed him. He started drinking coffee and questioning Nancy. But Nancy didn't like his attitude. Nancy told him that those boys had taken her phone, and they had come on their mopeds. The sheriff was shocked. He took Nancy to his car and told her he had just seen a murder, something he had never witnessed in his entire life. He said whoever committed that crime had escaped on mopeds. He then told Nancy to come with him because it wasn't safe to stay here alone. But before they could get into the car, the moped started. A boy attacked the sheriff. Nancy ran away and hid in the garage. From there, she watched as that boy killed the sheriff by crushing his head. This was no joke. What was happening was very serious. Nancy had to save her life, otherwise it seemed impossible. A boy was wandering around the garage, but Nancy stayed quiet, so he moved on without noticing her. Nancy was safe for a moment. Just then, Bobby arrived on a bike, so Nancy had to go out. She quickly entered the diner and started calling her dad. But her dad had left his phone on voicemail, so no one would disturb his colorful night. By no one, he meant Nancy. Who else would disturb him when she was alone in the diner? Before Nancy could call the police, those boys came inside. So both she and Bobby had to hide in the kitchen. But Bobby made some noise, putting both of them in danger. So Bobby put himself between them and the boys, which gave Nancy some time. At that moment, Nancy messaged Bobby and told him to come to the diner. But before this could happen, Nancy was also caught. Now, you might have two doubts about these killers. Either they are the same naughty boys who came earlier in the day, or it could be Jake. And if you go a step further, you might even think this is Nancy's dad's trick. But if you pay close attention to their actions, you'll know who these killers are. Anyway, after bothering Nancy and Bobby, a boy took Nancy to the kitchen to kill her. But Nancy started begging him not to do it. That boy was also acting strangely, which gave Nancy some time. In the meantime, Nancy grabbed a knife and stabbed that boy in the leg. Then she ran away. When she went outside, she found another boy, and Nancy stabbed him in the stomach. That boy turned out to be PT. Here, it was revealed that the three boys wearing masks are Jake, PT, and Co-op. Even Bobby is seen to be a part of them. Just seeing this, Nancy's world was shaken. But there was another world that was shaken, and we'll see that now it was Jake's. When Nancy fired him, Jake begged her not to do it. He had just explained everything to Nancy. Jake also apologized, saying he wouldn't do it again. He told her that everything would be ruined, that he didn't have a second chance. He had bills to pay, medicines to buy, house expenses. Everything depended on this job. Jake pleaded a lot, but Nancy still fired him. And when she went out to throw away the opossum, Jake was crying in the car. He turned his face away as Jake's mental state was breaking down. His medicines were running out, and he couldn't get money for them. When it was time to go home, Jake asked Coop to get his kitchen tools, and they decided to meet at night to enjoy themselves. Jake took PT with him to get drugs, and we saw a gun in his truck. After taking drugs, he wasn't fully aware of what he was doing, and he started talking to PT. From this, we learned that Jake has trauma from his mother's death, which is why he needs medicine. One day, when he came home, he found his mother lying dead on the floor. She had taken her own life. She had worked all her life, and then Jake took on the responsibility, though he couldn't forget it. Jake was expressing his pain when he saw those four naughty boys because of whom he lost his job. Jake went up to them, and they made fun of PT, which Jake didn't like. Jake was quiet, but they kept pushing. Jake lost control and stabbed one of them many times, then pointed the gun at the others. He couldn't understand what he was doing. He was even trying to kill PT, who had made fun of him, but PT managed to avoid it. Then Jake pulled the trigger, but the bullet didn't fire, so the boy started running. But Jake caught him and killed him. The other two boys ran away. Then Jake took their masks and went to the diner. He gave PT a mask, and then he went to Coop's place, where Bobby and Coop were drinking. Jake took them and went to the diner because he wanted to take revenge on Nancy. PT washed his hands, which were stained with Jake's blood, and then Sheriff Brooks stopped the water. PT was also watching Nancy, but he wasn't watching her when Jake got there. PT knocked so that Nancy would become alert because he knew Jake would kill Nancy. After PT's knock, Nancy saw the mopeds they had left outside. Although Bobby and Coop didn't know anything about what Jake had done or what he was planning, they thought he was just trying to teach Nancy a lesson. Then the prank continued, like tapping on the walls, appearing in front of her, and revving the mopeds. But PT wasn't really a part of this, and Bobby was mostly out of it. He was trying to get inside, but Nancy had locked the door. Jake was inside when the sheriff came, so they hid in the garage. Jake got scared when he saw Nancy talking to the sheriff. He thought Nancy recognized them and told the sheriff about them. Even PT was recognized by his actions and body language. Jake got scared, so he took another drastic action. He attacked the sheriff and killed him. Bobby and Coop were terrified because no one expected this. It was supposed to be just a prank. Bobby was the one hiding in the garage, and he saw Nancy, but he didn't have the courage to tell her. So he took his bike, which was in Jake's truck, just to make it seem like he had just arrived, even though he hadn't done anything and didn't know everything. He just didn't dare to look at Nancy. Nancy took Bobby to the diner where they were both caught, and the rest of the story you already know. PT is dying because of Nancy's knife, and it's all Jake's fault. But he didn't want to accept that. He took PT inside, and Nancy ran away. But Jake didn't want to go back, so he called Edward, Nancy's dad, and told him he couldn't reach Nancy's phone and that he should go check if she was okay. Edward trusted Jake, but he didn't know that Jake could go back and check himself. Edward didn't care, he still had the data. Bobby tried to help Nancy by taking the keys, but Jake attacked him and killed him for trying to help Nancy. Nancy came inside, and Jake helped her because if he didn't, Jake would trap her. But Nancy pushed him into the oil and he died. Nancy went to Bobby, who was trying to kill her, but she came back. Nancy called her, but she came back, and Jake followed her. But Nancy stabbed him, and she ran outside. It was morning, but she couldn't leave, so Jake stabbed her and dragged her inside, stabbing her twice more. She called the police and threw the phone away because she had to get out of town, for which she had to go to the trailer. Now we are back at the opening scene, where the bodies are lying in the diner. Jake thought that Nancy would die, but Nancy had already made arrangements. Nancy didn't care about Jake's stabbings because she had the meat that Jake had thrown away. This meat saved her twice. She talked to Bobby, but he did everything for her and wouldn't answer. Nancy took the police car to Jake's trailer, where he was ready. But Nancy made him crazy and stabbed him. He was dying, so she pulled the knife down and Jake died. Nancy left, but she collapsed because she was dying. She remembered that her mom gave birth to her when she was the same age. She had a lot to do, but her eyes were closing. That's when her dad came, and Nancy told him that she was going to be a mother. This is the end of the movie. This is a very engaging film that doesn't waste our time. It has a very simple plot, but we've seen it from two perspectives, which makes it more interesting. And it becomes even more interesting when both perspectives meet, making the story more meaningful. The main takeaway was to avoid impulsive actions. Jake made decisions without thinking, which were all wrong and very dangerous for others. But the decisions Nancy took were also wrong and very dangerous. She even regretted what she said. Nowadays, we don't know what others are going through, so if you limit your actions, it can be very good for many people. I am like this, I am like that. How did you like the movie? Tell us in the comments. If you liked this video, please like it. To watch more interesting videos, subscribe to the channel and set the bell to all, so you can get all my video notifications.